Hello all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in day 6 of Azure Storage Account series, today we are going to discuss about blob storage services. So this is basically most common used service in Azure Storage Account which we use as part of our deployment or storing configuration, or I would say storing any kind of backups. So for that purpose, most of the times we generally use blob storage services. So let's understand in more details about these services, and later on we will see a simple demo of blob storage, how we can utilize this particular service. So let's understand what is Azure Blob Storage. So basically the full form of blob is binary large object. So what does it mean? Basically we can store large amount of unstructured data in blob storage. So this is basically a cloud-based object storage solution which Microsoft Azure provides us to storing our data. So data could be anything, like it could be your images, it could be your videos, it could be your logs, or it could be DB backups, virtual machine hard disks. Lot of things basically we can store as part of Azure Blob Storage services. So in simple terms, we can say it's similar to a hard drive, but we have here cloud-based hard drive which we will access or use with the help of internet. So now we will see a features of blob storage, why it is recommended to use a blob storage. So the very first thing we have here is scalability. So here we can use or we can store large amount of data in petabytes basically. And like for example, initially you have a requirement of 1000 GB, but later on you need on a same blob storage you need another 1000 GB of storage. So you can simply scale the particular data, like whatever the data you want to store, so you can store as much as data based on the limit which is defined by Azure. So it is highly scalable. You don't need to focus or you don't need to think about the storage capacity on this particular service. Then we have, in terms of security, the another feature of security. So basically Azure Blob Storage Service support like built-in encryption method as well. Like so as soon as you will start storing your data on blob storage, it will start encrypting. So from the very first, like I would say, if you have stored 1 KB of data, then it will automatically encrypt it. And if you have to access your storage account, you have different solution. Like you can use access keys, you can use like shared access signature. Then we have a role based access control, which like it is kind of like least privilege solution which Microsoft provides. For example, if somebody want to access or if somebody want to read only your data, then you will provide only read access to the particular user or particular applications. That's how basically you can secure your Azure storage account and the data basically which you are going to store. Now in terms of third feature which we have here is high availability. So Microsoft Azure by default, or I would say built-in, provide a high availability option which is called a redundancy options. So we have LRS, which is called locally redundant storage. Then we have GRS, ZRS, which is geographical redundant storage, and then we have ZRS, which is zone redundant storage, and then three more we have. So I've already created a playlist or the video on these redundancy options. So if you want, you can go and check out in more detail about these high availability options. Then we have flexible tiers. So based on your data, like how frequently you want to data and how much for how long you want to store your data, based on that you have these flexibility tier options like hot, cool, and archive tiers. So based on your requirement, you can select these features, these flexible tiers. Then fast access, so it works well with Azure CDN. If you are using Azure Content Delivery Network, in that also you can use blob storage. I'm not going in more detail on Azure CDN. Maybe in upcoming videos I will explain more about Azure CDN, but it is kind of a edge network. Then these are the common use cases where we can utilize blob storage service. So storing and streaming media. If you want like If you want to host and stream any kind of audio, video files and images, you can use blob storage. We will see in one of the demo how we will upload a video on Azure Storage account and how we can access it. Then if you want to use blob storage for big data analytics, like you have massive amount of data set which you want to use for your machine learning and AI, and for that purpose also you can use a blob storage service. Third common use case, we have backups and disaster recovery. If you want to keep a backup of your application database, then also you can utilize this particular feature. Hosting static website, if you want to serve HTML pages, CSS pages and some kind of like documents, if you want to host as a website, for that also you can use blob storage. That also we will see in upcoming demo. Logging and monitoring, if you want to store your logs or telemetry data for troubleshooting purpose, in that also you can use blob storage service. Now if we will see a blob storage structure, so the very first thing, you have to create a storage account, and under storage account you have to go to the data storage options, and from there you will create a container. So basically container is like a folder, under that you will create your blobs, or I would say in simple terms, you will store your data under the blobs, under the container. And each blob, like each file or each document, will have their own URL. So that we will see in upcoming demo. So it will be more clear on that, like how basically each data or each file which we are going to store, that will have their own particular URL. So for example, here we have a file called file1.jpg, which is under container, inside the container. You can see we have a separate URL for the particular file itself. So if you want to reference this particular file in your application or application code basically, so you can just simply you have to mention the particular URL for particular document. Then there are different types of blobs we get as part of blobs storage service. So basically three types of blob services we get. The very first is block blobs. This is basically a default type, and most of the time we will use the block blobs storage service option, basically, or types. So here whatever the data we are going to store, that will be stored as a block, and each block will have its capacity like 4194 megabyte, and here you can store up to 50,000 blocks per blob. So the total maximum size here we have 190.7 terabyte. It is best for document, if you want to store your documents, images, videos and backups and software distribution. For that you can utilize a blob storage. And these are the use cases. So again, it's similar, like if you want to stream your media files, then you can use a blob storage, which we will use in a demonstration as well. If you want to use a backup of your application data, you can utilize blobs. And if you want to serve static files like CSS, HTML or Java, for that also you can use blob storage type. Then we have append blobs. So basically the append blobs is helpful when you have so for example, if you are using Azure Blob Storage in your application, and if you want to store, or if you want to store your application logs in Azure Storage account, then in that case you can use append blobs. So it will automatically add your data or your logs content in the particular file. So this is basically a special type of blob that only allow adding, means adding new data. If you have if you have 10 lines in particular file, and if you want to append the data on the same file, so from the 11th line onwards it will start storing your data on the same files. So this is something called append blobs. And here also we have a maximum capacity is 195 gigabyte. Then we have page blobs. So basically it is used for random read and write operations. So you will see a minimal uses of page blobs. Most of the times we will use block blobs or append blobs. And here the data is stored in 512 bytes pages. So maximum size like 8 TB per blob you can store your data here. And it is commonly used for your virtual hard disk. If you want to store your virtual hard disks of your Azure virtual machine, in that scenario you can use page blobs. Now the question is how we can access blob storage. So there are multiple ways from which you can basically access your Azure blob storage. So the very first option is web based, which is your Azure portal. Second, Microsoft provide a software called Azure Storage Explorer. With the help of this particular software you can connect to your Azure storage account and you can use Azure blob storage. So the Azure Storage Explorer, we will see a demonstration on this particular software in upcoming videos. Then another option we have Azure CLI and PowerShell, and then we have a REST API if you want to direct access via HTTP endpoint, and the SDK like for your inside your application if you want to access Azure Blob Storage you can do that. Now it comes to a security and access controls in blob storage. So the very first option we have access key, which is the default one, like two keys will be generated as soon as you created your storage accounts, key 1 and key 2. Second option we have shared access signature. So already I have discussed about the securities features which we have as part of Azure storage account in a particular separate video. I will reference the link in description as well of this particular video. Then we have role-based access control, then we have a private endpoint and firewall rule, and then we have encryption. So these are the security options we will get as part of blob storage services. Now let's move to a demo. So let me quickly create a Azure storage account. So I'll go to a storage account. I already have a resource group, so I'm not going to create. So here I will give any random name which is demo2 storage, and reason I will choose a Central India. Primary service I want Azure Blob Storage, and the performance I will keep a standard tier. Redundancy, this is for high availability basically, so I don't want any kind of, so I'll go with default, which is locally redundant storage. Now in next part I will not touch anything here. Let's keep everything default. Now in terms of networking, I will enable a public access, so I can access from my local machine. And if you have any private network, you can utilize this particular feature, or you can completely make it private from using this third options. So I'll go with private endpoint for now. And in terms of data protection, here we have soft deletes for containers. A lot of features we have here, so I'm just going with default one. Let me hit review and create. So it will take couple of minutes to create storage accounts. So for meantime, I'll just pause the video. As soon as we get a storage account ready, I'll resume back. So now storage account is ready. Let me go to resources. So now what I will do, I'll go to a data storage, and inside containers I will create a new container. So let me name it demo, and in advanced you can use the option like encryption scope basically, and you can see the access level is private. So as of now, if I'll try to upload any file inside this container or any data, I cannot access from my local system because the access level is private. So I will change it as once I'll start uploading the data. Let me hit create. So this is a folder called demo. So inside this basically I will upload my data. So let me first upload a file called HTML file. So basically I have explained like we can utilize blob storage for hosting a website, like static websites, HTML and CSS page. So that's what we are going to see a demonstration here. So let me select a file. So let me go to my desktop. Here I would have a demo.html file. So let me save it, open it, and let me upload it. So if I'll go to advanced, here you have an option like what kind of blob service you want, blob type you want to use. So here we have three options: block blob, paste blob, and append blobs. So I am going with default for block blobs. If you want to store paste blobs, you can utilize like for your logs. So during the upload you have to choose the particular option like for which purpose you want to you are going to store your data. So for now I'm going with block blobs, and let me hit click on upload. So if I go to this particular file, I will have a separate URL for this particular file. So suppose if you want to host any kind of static website, you can use blob storage. So for that, just simply upload the content or the files, and from the particular URL which you will get from here, you can access your file. So if I'll go to my browser and let me access, so you can see the public access not permitted. So because the access label is private, so let me change it. Let me close this. So let me go to security and networking. Okay, so here we have already enabled network, enabled from all networks. Let me go to container level. From here I will change access level. Okay, it's level because okay, so storage account level is disabled. So from there we have to enable first at storage account level. So let me go to, okay, so where we will get data management. Okay, let me go to settings here and configurations. So here if you see allow blob anonymous access, so that is disabled. So let me enable it and let me save it. Okay, so it is enabled from here. Let me try to refresh it. Still I cannot, I am seeing resource not found. So let me close it and I'll go back to my container which is under data storage. So if I go here and change access label, okay, let me refresh it. So because sometimes it take couple of minutes to reflect the changes. So here now I can see private. Let me click it container, anonymous read access for containers and blobs. So let me hit on OK. Let me go back to my file again and let's browse the URL. So you can see welcome to my Azure static website. So that's how basically you can utilize Azure Blob Storage for hosting your static websites. So let me close it. And now if you want to use a blob storage as a media, then what you have to do, you have to just simply upload any of your media files. So let me search for media files and I will upload it. Okay, I got one of the media file. Let me upload it. So default option, as soon as, or I would say whenever you start uploading your data, the default option you will get as a blob. But if you want to store your data for a log purpose, then you have to change the option. Like if you have to select append blobs. So I got this uploaded my media file. Let me go here and let me take the URL and let's see if it works or not. So you can directly browse your media files from Azure Storage account itself. So for example, if you want to include this media file in your application, you have to just simply add this particular URL in your application code, and you can stream any kind of media files or audio files or images in your application. So that's how basically we use Azure Blob Storage. So this is very useful if you want to use uh, any kind of, if you want to stream any kind of media files, or if you want to store any kind of documents, and you want to fetch that particular documents from your application. In that scenarios, you can utilize this particular blob storage services. So I hope it's clear. That's all for today. See you next video. Thank you so much.